I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research.
So a while ago in September 2021, I made a video concerning Rocket Lab's fair value. I settled for a number around $12 or $13 as a fair price, and it's safe to say that that video has not aged well at all, as Rocket Lab is now technically a penny stock trading at below $5. So given a far more bearish market sentiment and a re-evaluation on my part, I thought I'd revisit this topic 9 months later to discuss whether Rocket Lab is even worth the just under $2.3 billion market cap it's trading at today. Firstly, it's clear that Rocket Lab is no longer primarily a launch company, at least at the moment. I'll probably make a more detailed video regarding this, so make sure to subscribe, but space systems now make up a far greater proportion of revenue compared to launch. And whilst launch will likely provide substantial revenue in the future, and may eventually become profitable, I have become more realistic or pessimistic and have realised that this will not happen for a long time. Therefore, it's my opinion that space systems will make up the majority of revenue for years or even decades. Whilst this isn't a problem at all and makes sense to prop up costly launches, I perhaps naively purchased RKLB or Rocket Lab shares based around the hype around launch and the unveiling of the Neutron, which to some was quite disappointing. Regardless, looking at revenue for Q1 2022, it was reported at $40.7 million, and projections for Q2 are at around $52.5 million. If we assume a similar 30% quarter-on-quarter increase in revenue, which may be a bit liberal, we project Q3 revenues of $68.25 million and Q4 revenues of $88.725 million. This results in a price to sales of around 9.09, rounded to 2 decimal places. Now if you ask me, this doesn't seem all too unreasonable considering the high growth nature of Rocket Lab and space companies in general. However, it's important to remember that I've made some pretty bold assumptions, which may be on the more optimistic side. So let's assume that Q2, Q3 and Q4 revenues are all around $50 million, which is entirely reasonable, and I'd be surprised if this was the case, so I'd say it's the bear case. This leads to a price to sales of around 11.92 rounded to 2 decimal places. However, it's important to have some perspective, so let's compare these ratios to the Nasdaq via the data provided by Macro Trends. Link is in the description. So we can see the current price to sales of the Nasdaq is around 4.5. So in both cases, Rocket Lab is trading at a significant premium over the tech-heavy Nasdaq, which illustrates that the market is pricing in above average growth, which makes sense for a space company where growth potential is high. Now, what I'm worried about, as I'm sure most of you are aware of, is that the market has had a major contraction recently, meaning that the price to sales for the Nasdaq could be headed even lower, and it's of my view that the Nasdaq could decrease further to around 2016 price to sales levels, which were just under 3. Again, this is another assumption based on my bearish sentiment personally. And of course, I'd like this not to happen, but it's a possibility given the current market conditions. Considering a price to sales of 3 for the Nasdaq, I'm not sure that Rocket Lab can demand a price to sales of 11.92 or 9, especially given the long and uncertain route to profitability and that vital free cash flow to investors. This is a point I cannot make a firm conclusion about, as I'm unsure myself, and of course I'm not a financial advisor, so I'd be interested in what you think the appropriate price to sales is for Rocket Lab, in your view, down in the comments. Looking at the current backlog of $551 million and comparing this to a market cap of just under $2.3 billion, this is more encouraging, with a price to backlog ratio of 4.13. Comparing to other launch and space companies, we can see that Rocket Lab is seemingly reasonably valued, all things considered, with a slightly above average price to backlog and a seemingly below average price to sales. A quick note on how these figures were calculated: the price to sales is a forward full year 2022 metric based on forecasts and or 30% assumed quarter-on-quarter revenue growth for each of the companies, which will of course be more realistic for some, such as Rocket Lab, than others. The price to backlog figures should also be viewed with some skepticism, as of course different companies will include different things in their backlog figures, for example whether this is a contractual backlog or a non-contractual backlog. Of course, Rocket Lab is far more established than most of these other companies with more diverse operations such as space systems, launch, etc. it would make sense for Rocket Lab to come at a premium relative to these other companies, which doesn't seem to be the case at the moment. Now, coming to an all-important hypothetical dollar value, I'll say that I'm not a professional analyst again, and this is only a speculative estimation based on my amateur opinion, but following the comparison, I would say that Rocket Lab is at least fairly valued relative to the companies I selected for comparison, and maybe perhaps slightly undervalued relative to these other companies. Regardless, it's important to incorporate an adequate margin of safety, and with that in mind, I'd say maybe Rocket Lab's fair value could be around $3.50 to $5. However, taking into account the market turmoil at the moment and the potential for a recession, I can easily see this stock falling way below this level, as growth stocks are likely to be hit the hardest in the event of a major bear market and a recession. As a rule of thumb, I think it's always good to foresee stocks falling far lower than you ever expect. And therefore, for my personal portfolio, I think I'd hold out on buying more shares personally until I see more stability and in the world and the markets. In the event of a recession, I can see this stock plunging below $3, so let's hope that doesn't happen, because if the market falls, then Rocket Lab and all of the compared companies will likely fall in value along with it. In terms of a discounted cash flow, I'm not the greatest at this, and I saw a great Reddit post regarding a discounted cash flow for Rocket Lab a while ago done by Moonshot Stonks Ape. Great name, that will be linked in the description. I hope you don't mind me putting this in here. So yeah, have a look at that. And I'd just like to say, as always with free cash flow analysis, the assumptions you make are incredibly important and can change the calculated fair value dramatically. In my view, it may not be the best fit for the valuation of Rocket Lab, as I doubt that Rocket Lab will be consistently profitable and provide free cash flow to equity anytime soon, so I'm not sure it's worth forecasting and discounting. Furthermore, Rocket Lab, in my view at least, is an incredibly long-term play, at which point the butterfly effect can take hold and alter conclusions dramatically. So just to illustrate exactly what that means, changing assumptions slightly or changing numbers slightly could have a massive impact after a long time of forecasting. Regardless, this has just been a quick dive into a discussion regarding Rocket Lab's valuation following a poorly aged video last September. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the methods used in this video, and comment down below if you want to learn a bit more about the assumptions I made for the comparison. If you do disagree, also tell me how you would value Rocket Lab in the comments. Personally, I think price to sales or price to revenue may be the best method, but again, I'm not a financial advisor and this is all just subjective discussion, so take it with a pinch of salt. Finally, make sure to subscribe and like for more discussion videos about space stocks and investing. Thanks for watching.